Avrum, would you mind introducing yourself?
My name is Avrum. I'm an Israeli, was born in Jerusalem, grew up, educated at the then Jerusalem. When I said then, before 67, Jerusalem. Served many years in public public service, so to say. And nowadays, I'm again an Israeli. But this time retired. I teach in few universities around the world. I'm writing both books and articles and do some other things, but otherwise I'm a very concerned Israeli.
You were Speaker of the Knesset, so you had actually...
Were I? No, okay.
So you left that one out, but I mean, I think that is important probably in terms of recognizing that you had a very intimate understanding of the state, the function of the state and its politics. And I have known about you for quite a while, but your name sort of popped up again with full force, I would say, after Aretz picked up your article on Substack, calling for Jews to rebel. So if you don't mind me, people sometimes don't like to be quoted, but I would like to quote you. Basically, because I think that the request that you put forth in this article is really quite remarkable. What you say is that, so you're right, but Judaism has always held with it another civilization, one rooted in introspection, critique, compassion, and moral action. The prophet Nathan stood before King David, Israel's most powerful ruler, and indicted him for corruption and bloodshed. Centuries later, the prophet Jeremiah warned the decadent elite of Jerusalem of the looming First Temple's destruction. In the year 70 CE, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai fled the city of zealots and bloodlust and inaugurated the new alternative Judaism, a faith of worship without temple, of identity without territory, of strength without force, and of spiritual authority without political sovereignty. I started with this quote because for somebody who came from the political sphere of Israel, but also being part of the World Zionist Organization, being part of the Jewish Agency, your goal seems like a pretty remarkable reversal of position in terms of how you see Judaism, that Zionism has seen quite strongly associated with the idea of a religion or an identity, at least strongly associated with the construction of a state. So what happened, I suppose, is my question.
I take it that you, like me, like so many others, we watch the news, we listen to the news, we read the news, and I would like to assume that you, like me, do not celebrate what you see there, because the reality that grows from Gaza is a reality which challenges the very basic existential values of it, should shake the values of each and every individual who defines him or herself as a humanist. Now, let's put a frame to it. The history of Israelis and Palestinians was not born in October 7th. Yet October 7th is a very, very interesting watershed. It's a turning point. It's a tipping point. At what sense? Whatever Israel did to the Palestinians in 100 years of conflict, and we did a lot of wrongs to them, does not justify the first move and the first atrocity of the Hamas people on October 7th. And whatever Hamas did to the Israelis, the crimes against humanity that the Hamas did to Israelis around Gaza on October 7th does not justify anything that Israel is exercising in Gaza ever since. So these are two wrongs, two crimes that do not balance each other, do not cancel each other, and we have to address them both. When I look at what Israel is doing in Gaza, let's say first stage, I don't like, but I can understand, it's revenge, it is the blood is boiling, it is whatever it is, retaliation, restoring the deterrence, whatever it is. Now, 2 years later, it's not about revenge. It's about implementing a policy, an ideology, which is something else entirely. It's the policy of Israeli extreme religious fundamentalists hiding behind the miseries and the traumas of October 7th in order to promote something that they believed in many years before. So here, all of a sudden, an Israeli faces a dilemma. My state collides with my Jewish values. What do I choose? My historic, profound Jewish values of ethics, of morality, of that you should not do to the other what you do not like to be done to you? Or do I become a murderous nationalist? In a junction like this, if I do not stand up and I do not take a position as an individual, I become the indifferent who is a collaborator with the murders. So I have to take a position. So the article you quoted and a few others, deeds and writings and things that I do recently are exactly about that. I take the moral position versus the corrupt one done by my government.
Can I ask you? I mean, there are very strong echoes for me. I mean, one of my Israeli heroes is probably remains Leibovitz. For a variety of reasons, I come from philosophy, but also, I mean, I think that the voice of my conscience in some way was clearly expressed in that way before questions about Zionism were on the table for me. But I think that something that I see in your article, in this particular article, when you refer to the Bar Kokhba revolution, when you refer to this sort of Maccabean Hebraism, I thought it was very interesting that you're replaying, say, a topography of Judaism, which actually contrasts Judaism with Hebraism. And this Hebraism, I mean, it's very visible if you read Jabotinsky or if you read Herzl, if you read Nordau, etc. And that was very much the line that most Zionism took to a large degree. But what I find very interesting in your position is that you have a very sort of full-throated return to B'Tselem Hashem, to Tzedek, to Jewish values that belong to, and you say that much in the article, that there is this, I mean, I will refer to that quote a bit later, but this idea that you know, in the ghetto, it was not just sort of a shut down space, it was also a space that was permeable. You say something to that degree. So it's remarkable to me, I guess, that the emphasis is on Jewish values. Do you think that these Jewish values are at this point reconcilable with the reconstruction or a progression of Zionism in the future? You think that Zionism remains a possibility given this?
It is 5 different dissertations in one question. Okay, so let me try.
Very sorry.
No, it's fine because everything is so loaded and everything is so
Partly,
emotional.
I will say these are conversations that I've been having with myself, so I'm very happy that I can share them with somebody else.
Well, let's have a dialogue, which is 2 monologues, your monologue and my monologue, and then we shall merge them. Let's begin with a place in which we share the same departure point. I see myself as a pupil of most of Leibovitz teaching. I knew him since I was born, the same synagogue, Yeshurun in Yerushalayim. I was a student of his. I was one of the young people coming to his home almost on a daily basis till he passed away. And the minute I was launched into the political sphere in Israel, I said then that the early 80s, I have two missions in my life. Both of them are very Leibovitz missions. I want a separation between church and state, and I'd like to put an end to an occupation. We're now 40, 50, 60 years later. I want a separation between church and state even more. And I want to put an end to the horrific occupation even much more. So on that sense, I didn't move a millimeter. Israel moved their way. Israel took off to different places to what it used to be. So when you ask the question about reconciliation between and between, as for today, with the current regime, it looks like in the competition between Jewish and democratic, the Jewish and a very, how will I say, a mutation of Judaism swallowed the democratic one. It won over. And therefore, with that kind of expression of Judaism, which is expressed by Smotrich, racist philosophy, Ben Gvir Judaism of hatred, Netanyahu culture of incitement and inner and encouraging of inner conflicts, this kind of Judaism cannot live together with any kind of containing human universalist values. If we go back to a different kind of Jewish manifestation, Jewish philosophies, and Jewish understanding, there is a potential.
But do you think that form of Judaism or that form of state is a state that would still be a Zionist state? I mean, would Zionism make any sense in that kind of context?
Martin, I will let me go after you personally, okay? I mean,
Sure.
Let me on you, okay? It's a stupid question.
Okay.
The end of it. Now let's go back to be nice to each other. In what
right.
sense? Okay? It was not that personal. God
No.
forbid. You echo a question that so many people ask. Okay, it's a serious question. It's a question that people use in order to label
Look,
you.
can I don't want to just one
Let
second.
me go out of the hole myself. Don't
Yes,
worry.
yes.
Okay? I dig the hole. I jumped into it. Let me climb out of it. Okay. Why people ask this question? Not people, Martin. People, the Jewish discourse. Because Zionism, because the label, the kosher certificate. You're Zionist, you're not Zionist, you're post-Zionist, you're anti-Zionist, you're non-Zionist, you're later Zionist, you're early Zionist, you're religious Zionist, you're secular Zionist. Oof. And I say it's obsolete. Why is it obsolete? Zionism at the time, 19th century till middle of the 20th century, was a necessary scaffolding to enable the Jewish people to reconstruct its regime from a diasporic regime to a sovereign one. When you do a reconstruction of any home, any house, you need support system, you need scaffolding. So we had it as Zionism. In May 48, the Zionist project was miraculously succeeded for the Jews, tragically so for the Palestinians, and the new structure was inaugurated. We have Israel, we have sovereignty. You don't need the scaffolding anymore. Zionism ended in 48. From there on, should have launched to its orbit the civilian entity called Israel, a democracy that belongs to all of its citizens. So people didn't want to give up, and whatever is the reason. As for now, Zionism within Israel is serving for different purposes than it used at the time. It's a tool of discrimination of Arabs. It's a tool of labeling the ultra-Orthodox. Is a tool at the internal debate to say you're a Zionist, you're not a Zionist, etc., etc. And I say I'm not part of the game.
No,
And I'm an Israeli. This is how I introduced myself.
I am sympathetic to certainly to the point of the construction of a state that is equal and the membership is equal for all its citizens. I mean, it's not a state that is Jewish. I would assume that it's a state for everybody, including, like, you know, the Thai woman that has been living there for 40 years and whose son is in the army and so on and so forth. But I guess the first of my question, I mean, I will try to defend myself, although it might not be worthwhile. I think that the point of my question is about the still very much alive ideological push, right? Still very much alive. So we can put in other terms if we want to leave the word Zionism out, which generally I have to admit that I don't use a lot. It's the question about the survival of an ideology of Jewish exclusive membership of a state. Doesn't matter what state. Right, but a state which is for the Jews, and I mean that the national Jewish law reserves that in the article, right? So I mean, I think you're right that you know, I see it as something that is obsolete historically, because I think that Zionism, in a sense, belongs to sort of nationalist irredentism of the late part of the 19th century, early 20th century. It belongs in the club. So in that sense, I think you're right. But I think that we cannot deny that in law and in spirit, and not to mention in practice, the question of the exclusive, or at least the supremacy of the Jewish identity within the membership of the state is very, very much there.
Let's begin with terminology. You are a philosopher, so terminology is the departure point, right?
Indeed. Define your terms.
You use the term a Jewish state.
Mm-hmm. Which is not my coinage, I will say.
You use the term. Now I jump when you
put it together. Yes.
The other day, couple of months ago, I was running in Jerusalem, and I ran and I saw a taxi parking with a bumper sticker. This taxi observes Shabbat. I said, "Wow, that's interesting.
That's an impressive taxi."
Yeah, what does it do? It buys chalas, it light the candles, it goes to shul. I mean, go to the mikveh. How this taxi observes Shabbat? Should be a huge mikveh. And then I stopped and contemplated about the concept, and I said the taxi is indifferent to Shabbat. Is the taxi owner or the taxi driver doesn't use this tool on Shabbat.
Mm-hmm.
The same I say, the state cannot be Jewish. What, it puts tefillin on, it reads psalms. A state is a state. The people who use it as a political instrument might be Jews, might be not Jews, might be other, depends on the polity and the political community that is using the instrument called state. So the minute you say it's a Jewish state, you lost me, because it's a term which is hollow and empty, unless you mean something like some ministers who believe that the state is indeed part of the process towards becoming a religious entity, like we have the Muslim Republic of Iran and we have the Jewish Republic of Israel. If this is what you have in mind, like few past ministers said, and Smotrich and others say today, we want Medinat Halacha, a state of the religious law, this I understand. If you are not part of this creed, don't use this term. Item number one. Item number two. Israel is it's a democracy in deficit. At what sense? We say, and we are so proud of it, that we are the only democracy in the Middle East. Well, let's say we are the only half democracy in the world. What does that mean? It's not democratic at all. To millions of Palestinians which are deprived on behalf of this democracy of any democratic or human rights or civil rights that they should have. It is not democratic for the 20% Palestinians with Israeli idea. It's not democratic at all for somebody like myself who is not an Orthodox Jew and cannot marry freely. And I can go on and on and on and on. Israel is an ethnical democracy. Ethnical democracy is self-annihilating definition. There is nothing like that. A democracy is an entity in which all citizens are equal. The minute you deny the equality foundation from democracy, you deny the democratic notion itself. Let's move on beyond philosophy, okay? In Israel for years, because of ambiguity and because of political power and because of so many things, they want us to believe that it is possible to have two at the price of one, Jewish and democratic. The de facto reality was not very balanced. The equilibrium was not very good, but it was de facto. And we could always say, de jure, one day, the Messiah will come and there will be total equality between Jewish and democratic. Came the year 2018, and whatever was de facto, not very much discussed, people love to turn their eyes away from it, etc., became a de jure legislation. The nation law that you mentioned earlier actually signed the Jewish supremacy as the modus vivendi, not just modus operandi of the state. And again, me, the individual Israeli, was torn between my values and my law. I went to the court, Martin, I went to the court and I said, listen, I do not deny the right of the majority of MKs to vote whatever they like. If they want to vote that the majority of people should cross in red light, they can vote for it. And green light is don't cross, no problem. This is their job. But with this new law, nation law, they invented or gave birth to a new nation, to a new Jewish people. They have the right to do it, but they cannot impose it on me. You cannot impose belonging. You cannot impose identity. I belong to the old Jewish people. Okay, I belong to a different school of thought. I belong to a different philosophy. I belong to a different value system. This is how I was brought up. For 2,000 years, I was prepared for this moment to be this kind of a Jew.
I mean,
that's why I asked the court to remove from the population registry my definition as a Jew. I said, this is neo-Judaism, and in Israel, unlike so many other places, Germany included, you do not register the big brother and the big data, do not register your religious identity or religious profile. In Israel, we do. Jewish, Muslim, Christian, Baha'i, you name it, whatever it is. I said, I cannot accept the fact that now I am a Jew who belongs to your new grouping. So the court was reluctant, and tomorrow I was supposed to meet the representatives of the state to debate the issue in court, and I was ready. I was ready to go after them with all the arsenal of my 2,000 years of argumentation, Leibovich included. And the day before the court decision, the state sent a message to the court that they accept my plea. So the court gave me the sanction. I went to the Ministry of Interior, was a little bit of push and push back, and eventually I'm the only Israeli born to a Jewish family who is not registered in the population registry as a Jew.
It's quite remarkable. I mean, I would say if you have been looking at Germany at all, one of the things that has been happening here is that there is a very strict account of what one is permitted to be as a Jew, and that is really strictly for short. I know you don't like the term, and I believe that just like you, that is obsolete. But Zionism is really the name of the game here. And what is very curious is that I think the shortest way to put it is that I consider myself a Jew precisely after the very model that you described. Tzedek, Emet, B'Tselem Elohim, etc. And remarkably enough, it's not really a Judaism that Germany accepts or tolerates at all. as a matter of fact, many of these people, Jews like you, myself, are being taken out of the streets, like marched away for protesting the same things that you're protesting and seeing it through the same eyes that I see it. Germany 2025 would not have space for, Einstein's 1938 speech. What I find kind of remarkable is, once again, I suppose my question is not perhaps what is the space for Israel, but what is the meaning of Judaism in all of this? Where does Judaism, actually, if you don't mind, I want to quote just one more paragraph from you, which is the one that to me is really the closest in a way. And then I will ask you about your solutions. But you write immediately after what I quoted before, you write, so this idea of spiritual authority and strength without force and identity without territory, worship without temple, you write, this was the Judaism that later embraced Yiddish, the language Isaac Bashevis Singer once described as the language of exile, language without land and without borders, unsupported by any government, a language with no words for weapons, for ammunition, for military maneuvers, of warfare tactics. In the ghettos, Yiddish speakers lived out what the great religions merely preached, a daily practice of studying humanity and human relations, what they called Torah, Talmud, ethics, and mysticism. The ghetto, far from just a refugee for the persecuted, was a grand experiment in peaceful living, self-meaning, and care for others. And it still survives, refusing to surrender, despite the cruelty that surrounds it. The quote is remarkable. I like Bashevis Singer a lot. It's one of the first things I ever read in Yiddish, so it's very dear to my heart. Where is this space left?
I think that you put 3 spaces in place, with your permission. Okay. The first is, what is Judaism nowadays? I will say, whatever it is, it's in a crisis. The second is, who is Germany? And I will say that the German should feel in crisis, because so much of the existence of the new Germany is based on us. And if we are in crisis, they are in crisis. They don't really know it, they don't want to recognize it, but it is it. So let's start with the Jewish crisis. There were 3 existential blows hitting the face of classic Judaism. The secularization coming with modernity and the Kantianism and from Spinoza and on. The second, the Holocaust, which perished the hinterland, the cultural, spiritual, historic hinterland of Jews. And the third is the establishment of the State of Israel and the transformation from exile to sovereignty. We did not yet give the moral, spiritual, and philosophical answer to these 3 existential changes. We live from day to day, and we react to this, and we retaliate that, and we have an economy, and we have high tech, and this and this and this. But the big question, what is it, this elephant called Judaism, which is changing in front of our eyes? We do not yet have the new definition. We have the old definition, we have the crisis, and we don't yet have the new one. So various people and various movements and various philosophies try to persuade us that they have the road. All in all, the Jewish people is quite fragmented nowadays, between Israel and diaspora, within Israel, within diaspora, between religious and non-religious, between observant traditionalists and modernists, between liberals and conservatives, you name it. Very, very fragmented people. One thing is for sure, that the entry of the national idea and the establishment of the State of Israel, the national idea to the general public, and the establishment of the State of Israel for the Jews, pushed away diasporic ideologies that were different than national isolationism and national exceptionalism, the way we see it today in Israel and by Israel. this about us. We are, in essence, in crisis. Germany. My dear beloved friend Martin Schulz, when he was the president of the European Parliament, told me once something like, for me, said Martin, Germany exists in order to make sure that Israel exists. Something like that. I don't want to argue with his feeling, but I will say that the way I see Germany nowadays, mainstream Germany needs the Jew as a victim in order to be itself with compassion to the victim, unlike the lack of compassion of 80 and 90 years ago. It's almost impossible for this kind of Germany to accept the Jew who's a victimizer.
Indeed.
And the minute Israel moved from the corner of the eternal, perpetual Holocaust victim to something else, Germany is lost.
I think that there is also a serious problem here with the fact that you have had, the question about the responsibility of the Germans toward the Jews is actually subsumed under the question of what Schulz told you, which is the supposed special responsibility of Germany towards Israel. And very often the responsibility towards Israel is done to the detriment of the Judaism that you just described precisely in the Bashevis Singer quote, which is, I think that the diversity, this sort of multiplicity of voices, this studying human relations, this multiplicity of languages, people coming in with Russian and German and Yiddish, and so this thing is not really permitted to the extent that what Judaism is for the German, what is the object of this victim, is the Israeli. It's a Hebrew-speaking, falafel-eating, Jerusalem-dwelling, can do no bad. And this is itself quite remarkable to me, which is that the anti-Semitism of old has become a philo-Semitism of now, and this kind of philo-Semitism also has a figment of the imagination at its center.
This is one layer. To this, let's add two layers and cover the issue of anti-Semitism. Okay? Mm-hmm. For sure, there was here a kind of what we call in chess, castling. Okay, but there are two other layers here as well. The first is the way Israel weaponized anti-Semitism. Listen, I'm a citizen of the world, not just a citizen of my own country. And when I see an evil or wrongdoing done by anybody, I take a position. I mean, when President Trump wants to have Greenland, I'm with the people of Greenland. Okay, when Sarkozy, when he was a minister of interior, ignited the suburbs of Paris and other cities, I was with the immigrants, not with him. And I criticize France, and I criticize Germany sometimes, and I criticize America, and it's okay. That's part of world responsibility. The only state that could never be criticized about anything is Israel. Why? Because we created a reality, and the embarrassing Ambassador Prosor is the spearhead of this embarrassment. Is whatever you say against Israel, you're an anti-Semite. Everybody is a Hitler.
In fact, I have to say that with great pride, I had been called the fifth worst anti-Semite in Germany by the German-speaking spokesperson of the IDF.
I joined the club. I want to be the sixth one. Okay.
You're very welcome. I could not quite figure out how to negotiate this because there is obviously nothing you can say, right?
Ignore them because they're idiots. There is no value and there is no substance to their arguments. Simply empty rhetoric. It's propaganda. It's not content. It's not a value system. Now, the minute you prevent any criticism against Israel to be expressed, you allow the worst of deeds to be done by this Israel. Not only that, the fact that this Israel that does not allow any criticism against mainly what it is doing in the occupied territories and in Gaza ever since, became the kosher certificate for the worst regimes in the world. Urban could not have been urban without Netanyahu. He is his chief rabbi.
The George, I mean, also the George Birnbaum operation around Autobahn.
And this entire clan of illiberal, as if charismatic but very corrupt leaders can do it because of Israel. And what's the logic of this Israel, of this right-wing racist Israel? These Orbans and these Bolsonaros and these even Trumps, they express a love for Israel, what do you call philo-Jews, in order to hate the Muslims.
Yeah, clearly. And absolutely.
Israel, who is a descendant, the offspring of the Holocaust, does not want to recognize that once hatred becomes a policy, it doesn't end there.
Absolutely.
So the Israel of Prosor and Ben Gvir is a one that weaponizes anti-Semitism, prevents any criticism against Israel in order to enable all the atrocities we commit, and at the same time create a coalition with the worst of nowadays regimes.
There is, I will say that there is something very curious that, I mean, we saw it during the Charlie Hebdo and Super Kosher attacks, which was Netanyahu landing in Paris, going to the Grand Synagogue, and essentially demanding that Jews move to Israel, the only place where they stayed.
No, it was Arik Sharon at the time, no?
It was Netanyahu. Netanyahu sitting in the Great Synagogue. And there is this very curious moment in which he says this and he finished speaking and people start singing the Marseillaise, which almost looked like a response, like also almost, but the thing that is remarkable is that it actually does serve a purpose, because every time there is like a blow up of anti-Semitism, there is, in Europe or in Latin America, I mean, where I come from, there is a wave of movement, of aliyah, of movement towards Israel. So there is, there is almost what looks like a dynamic of mutual service.
Yes, but catastrophic Zionism was always there. To say the more catastrophes you have, the stronger the Zionist alternative becomes. And then you ask yourself, you know what? Only since October of 2 years ago, is that so that Israel is the safest place for the Jewish individual or the Jewish collective in the world? Not at all sure. And if this logic works, and we're logical people, I mean, allegedly we're logical people. So if a catastrophe happened in Paris and you should come to Israel, so if a catastrophe happens in Israel, you should go to Paris?
Yeah, no, I'm in full agreement. I mean, I'm very much aware of precisely this dynamic. Look, we don't have endless time, and you've been very generous, but I still have one topic that I want to cover with you, which is your request. And I must say, I'm ready for it. So, I mean,
soon I'm going to launch the petition soon.
Right. So precisely, your idea is that there should be 1 million Jews, which is the way that it's put it, is less than 10% of the population, that should actually initiate a demand in front of the ICJ. Presumably, also there would be possibilities for the International Criminal Court to put demands to actually go against Israel, to reclaim, essentially, I suppose, the voice of Judaism from the Zionists or from the Israeli position. Can you explain a bit more what you have in mind and how it would work? And of course, correct any mischaracterization I might have.
No, it's fine. I'll begin with that. The way you open this conversation with, we don't have words to describe this reality. So imagine we are two people lost under the mountains of evilness and the mountain of information and misinformation. There must be at least 10% of the Jewish people who are as confused as we are. And they look for a venue to express their alternative point of view and the alternative value system, value language. And I say, let's address them. Let's tell them there is a way. It's not a way to go against the state of Israel. It's a way to go for our humanistic commitment. If in order to achieve humanity for the innocent people in Gaza goes through stopping Israel, let's stop Israel. Israel is not immune because it is called Israel or because it has a circumcised prime minister. This does not give immunity.
I must say that I was hoping that nobody would ever mention Netanyahu's penis in this podcast, but I think it's fine. It's the breaking news.
The fact that he's Jewish is irrelevant to the argument, because what kind of Jewishness? If it's a murderous Jewishness, you are my enemy.
I'm completely with you.
So
Yeah.
the way I like many Jews to join this petition as a part of an inner Jewish dialogue is not only to say we belong to a larger universal humanity and we're responsible to what happens there, and therefore we want to stop the atrocities in Gaza. It's also within the Jewish people. It's about time, after so many years of being silenced and being abused and being harassed and being called names and labeled, you know it, I know it. It's about time to stand up and say, "Dai, genug, enough."
Yeah. Avrum, I cannot thank you enough. You've been very generous with your time. I have, of course, more questions, but I would not ask you. I will reserve them to perhaps
Let's keep it for the next time.
Conversation.
Let's have a series.
It just always keeps going somehow.
Yeah.
I hope you're well, and I hope to see you soon.
Over there, and be careful and be aware of the IDF spokesperson.
I am.
Thanks a million, Martin.
Be well.
Bye-bye.
Bye.